Yo. Not yelp, I said yo. God damn it. Hi everybody. Hopefully it was restful. Restful for me, I'll say. Productive part is going to be stream, and then followed shortly by whatever I do after stream, probably. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that today was restful more so, and then we'll get back to productive stuff. Basically now. And this is why I'm also rewarding myself with some Chipotle. Taste of beer. Oops, sorry, pardon me. Happy era of Fatal Fury. Oh yeah. That's why I'm playing Mark of the Wolves soundtrack right now, actually. The City of the Wolves open beta starts tomorrow. I have missed playing as Kotaru Futaba, and I'm happy that I have the opportunity now. Or I will anyway. So yeah, today, more of our Core Busters and game dev stuff. The plan is more or less just to make sure that we get through and check. I know it says checkpointing in the stream title, and I know I said that on my go live for people who happen to follow me on Blue Sky, but I realized we have to check the rest of the Oh right, there's this acting weird. So we're almost there, but not quite. I forgot this was a couple of things. So I know it says checkpointing, but we gotta figure out what else is going on with this first. So let's. I'm just taking my time and running a couple things, doing a little bit of error checking on my part. I'm gonna need to. Okay. Why is this not? Interesting. Because if you're walking on the ground, it should be. Hmm. But no, good vocabulary word. Okay, Val, what's up? Oh, right. I forgot. I was like, for half a second, I actually went and thought, I, for half a second, I was like, wait, what brought that on? And then I remembered I made Book say that. Okay. Hey, Stubby. Let's see. Hmm. Haha, wait, because I got Chad thinking I'll get over here. Good. Okay. I jumped that time, so maybe that's not quite. So right now, the thing I'm testing for, to be clear, is mostly to see if there's a reason why. Oh, that got angry. Okay. Well, wasn't expecting that. Godot got angry about something for some reason, and then let's see. So trigger volume dialog. Let's maybe make I gotta make sure that we're walking when we go into it. Push that a little farther over. It'd be really weird if for some reason okay. So that is working. And then we just get the error when we try to do the change state binding. Okay. So here, right, it does all that. Okay, cool. Player state idle comes over here. Okay, energy travel idle. Oh, I'm silly and I forgot. Is this why this has been? Is this why this has been doing the thing that it's been doing? I wonder. I was sitting here wondering, why does this thing keep giving me a thing about like there's nothing called plan? And I sat and I, for the longest time, couldn't figure out why it was fussing me about this. And it's like, maybe it's because I forgot to actually comment out the whole thing there. It might still give me this error. Are we fixing things? More or less. Okay, so that stopped happening. But 4 years, God's damn, yeah. Stubby and I, we have been friends since literally like our freshman year of high school. Like, um, Stubby and I, we go way back. Is the simplest way to put it. We go way back. Okay, so that fixed that problem that I've been having for forever. It wouldn't surprise me because I guess that explains that, huh? Okay, so now the real question is, why is it not changing? Oh, hang on a second. Pondering. Let me go back and look at the debug information real quick. Ah, that's why. I know why. Now that I've sorted that out, now I know why. Because current directional input is being set I think that should fix it. All right, got it. So to explain what was happening there and why I was able to fix it just now, well, I should comment this first. This is the key part. This is the key part, right? If inputs are disabled, we need to make sure that the current directional input that we have is reset to 0. The reason for that is pretty straightforward. If we go back over to the level manager and we look over right here, right, it says toggle inputs should be set to false, which means that basically once we start the dialogue, player shouldn't be able to move anymore, right? Like we flat out disable that, and we disable all input from the actual player so that they can't move around while the dialogue is happening, right? That's very much on purpose. However, because I did not make sure, sorry, I didn't make sure to zero out the current directional input, what was happening is the input was being cut off, but then the game was retaining the last directional input that we were getting. And so it was like, oh, you were moving beforehand? Well, there are no more inputs allowed, but now you're still moving. Hello, chat. I just got 4 comms of Crystal Tower, so I feel pretty good right now. To quote the man, the myth, the legend, Luke Sullivan himself, Street Fighter 6 Popeye Man, whoa! Let's go! I don't have the voice for it like Alex Lay does, but like, yeah. Back to the Basha Mines I go. Uh, as one does. So yeah, um, with this particular thing, the main thing is that because with toggle inputs, I didn't make sure to like clear out the current directional input when inputs are disabled. It was like, oh, you were running, like, oh, your current directional input was like to the right. I cut off toggle input. I hit toggle inputs to false. It's not taking inputs anymore. Whoops. Lol, Lamau, you were moving before. You're gonna keep moving now. So that's why in toggle inputs, I had to go over and say, hey, if inputs are turned off, then you don't have any current directional input. It forces you to stop, or it resets what the current directional input is to 0, which keeps the script from like moving in the idle state, right? If you move on the ground, go to the move state. And the reason why I was able to figure that out is if you look over here at the output. So that decoder was just like a, hey, you were on the ground when you hit a dialogue option, so now we're going to start the dialogue runner, right? And you notice this time it said you exited player state move, you entered idle from there, right? And that was on purpose because what was happening was that before I did that fix, you would then see it say player voke has exited player state idle and has gone back to move because the current input was still being held from beforehand. And I didn't figure that out until like a second ago. Cool. That should be handled. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So this all should starts the game. Resume the game. So now we have these nice little yarn commands doing yarn command things. That's nice and squared away. That's the current player to the scene tree. Focuses the main camera on the current player. Assigns the HUD based on the current player. Gets the yarn for clusters and sets the character name to whatever character is currently in use. Emits an instantiation signal. This here instantiates the player. We're not using process for anything right now, we can delete it. Let's load. Sets up the scene to load. Load. Let's see here. And instantiates and sets up a signal to okay, good. All right, we declare the packets to use. These over here also. Variables. Region. So this region stuff is mostly just for organizational purposes. You don't have to do this sort of thing, but it makes it easier for me to like figure out what is what and what is where. And I usually use it mostly with variables because that's where I tend to have the most. That's where I tend to have the biggest thing. Where I tend to have the biggest sort of like counts of what does this thing do again? The current player by the game. Loaded by the game. The thank you for the alert, Kaz. Appreciate it. There we go. On animation. So here's an interesting thing. I'm going to note it over here in the code also. So, this is an important thing to sort of talk about too, right? Because the thing about effects here, as I noted here in this thing here, effects here is a independent suite that you can use basically to play 2D and 3D effects, right? Unity has something similar with like a particle effect system. But Godot not having that, I opted to look into effects here, which I was also using in Unity at one point or another for some viral core buster stuff. And as it turns out, effects here did eventually make like a Godot plugin. Now, the main catch though is that that plugin is written using GD script, right? So because that plugin is written using GD script, let me turn down this music just a little. I realize I'm yelling a little bit, like I'm talking over the music, which is a little louder than it really should be. So, because the effects here plugin is written in GD script and I'm using C#, I have to use the tools that are made for cross-communicating, right? So, in this particular case, right, you can't see the tooltip example that I'm looking at, but basically, set is used on any node to actually get a hold of whatever that property is for that node. So, if you look at the effects here node, I'm going to come over here and try to give an example of this thing. So, right here, right, we have spawn, effect, emission. Right? You'll notice that there's this property over here called effect. And while it's listed as capital over here, if you highlight it, the tooltip that shows up, which y'all can't see, is in lowercase, right? So by coming over here and saying effect in lowercase and then saying this is the thing that I want you to load, this allows us to change the properties of things that are nominally only like directly affectable through GD script from C# code. So in this case, right, we say that we want to set property effect to this, and then we want to call the function play, right? So if you are using C# for your Godot stuff and you're like, I want to be able to cross communicate, but I have some plugins that are written in GD script and others that are only written in C#. How do I do that? From the C# side, this is how. And this is immensely useful because it means that right? It just happens to be very useful for being able to like do this stuff. I can't do this, right? So at this point, all of that works. That's cool. So the part that I really need to figure out now at this point, well, if I'm not doing this for anything, that's not being used, then we'll figure it out. Okay, good. So that's set right now. Okay. So now mostly it's coming down to we have to work our way through and debug the actual yarn scripts. Okay, this should be better. And now let's take a look at I need to come back over here and I need to take a look at some other stuff. So match whoever it is. Please. Useful. Oh, the emotion one isn't going to work yet. But right now, what I'm doing is just making sure that the next immediate thing to do at the moment is to make sure that the portraits switch correctly. I know what that is. So the portrait should always be visible. It's just that we need to make sure that it's value, so to speak, right? So that modulate thing that looks real complicated and kind of like wacky and weird, right? I'm going to come over here to sort of demonstrate this. So if we look over here, right? If we look over here at this portrait, right? It's blank right now. And if we look over here where it says modulate and self-modulate, we have these things. So if you remember from one of the last times we had stream, when I explained the way the hexadecimal system works, and I was like, right, so normally you have like 3 hex pairs from 0, 0 all the way up to FF to represent the red, the green, and the blue. You have like 3 pairs of those in total to represent red, green, and blue, right? So normally, this is why like in hex colors, you have like 0, 0 is complete 0 for whatever that is, while FF is the maximum value of 255. I'm not going to get back deep into the math, that's not the point. However, so normally that means that you get 3 pairs of 2 digits for the red, the green, and the blue. However, you can also add in a second set of digits to get the alpha value, or how transparent something is or is not. So in this case, right, I'm directly messing, if you look over here at this part of the code, I'm directly messing with the color by saying red, green, and blue are all at 255, so it's white, because we're working in what's called an additive color system. When we're working with colors as a computer sees it, you basically add up each individual little pixel that makes up your computer screen, basically gets colored with some combination of red, green, and blue in order to make a specific color, right? And it is all of those little pixels, each of them line by line displaying either this color or that color or slightly different whatever, that makes the images work the way that they do, right? So, with that in mind though, when you add all of those colors together, you get white, which is why it's called an additive color system, because we're basically getting colors out of an individual pixel by adding together red, green, and blue in different values and different measures. However, the alpha, which is a rendering thing that is most... Okay, I should be careful about how I say that, because I don't know the specific circumstances under which it works. But the short answer is the alpha basically determines, right, how transparent is this thing. So when I set it to 0, this means that it becomes completely transparent. So this is going to stay visible, but what's going to happen is that rather than turning it visible or invisible, depending on whether or not we find an image for whoever is speaking, we're going to make it transparent or not transparent instead. It's a little easier to control because it means that like it is always present, but whether or not it is visible is dependent on... Okay, cool. So I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting not that behavior actually. So it's kind of wild. Oh. So let me actually do it this way. And let's see if that actually does it, because it could have been. It is quite possible that because I was trying to use integers, we cranked the colors too high, which is entirely possible. That's a thing that happens sometimes. So we're going to do this instead and see if that fixes it. It doesn't do the thing that I want, though, which is... Okay, so let's just do... So yeah, the reason why you'll sometimes see me put in these like really silly gd.prints in my code is because I'm trying to see if the code is ever reaching that point while the game is running. And the sillier the message, the easier it is for me to tell what I'm looking for. Okay. So we can come over here and we see that for whatever reason that didn't happen. So we're going to take a step further. We're going to do this. This error brought to you by a moldy ham sandwich. Oh, okay, this is already a string, so I don't need to do it twice. So yeah, the reason why I'll put in like silly messages like that is because, at least for me, part of it is like part of it is for the memes, but then the other part of it is that if it's a silly message, and I know if it's a silly message and I remember why I made it silly, it's easier for me to track it down and remember. Okay, good. So that's printing correctly. Good. Okay, so let's pause right here and check. Okay, so that is happening. Oh. Damn it. I figured it out. Okay. I've got it. I know y'all can't see it. I'm going to close this window so y'all can see. Give me a second. Okay. Hey, if I have any potential programmers or people who are like really invested in like debugging programming and stuff in the house, I want you to quote Kamina from Tengen Toppa and Lagan, dig the wax out of your ears and listen up, because we got it. It's time for me to talk about like where I had a screw up here. Let's talk about it for a second. One of the most important things that I used to tell students when I was teaching, right, when that was the thing I was doing, one of the most important things I used to tell students, especially when it came to C# and if statements. You want to treat an if statement like a sandwich. It has a top loaf and a bottom loaf. And if you're not careful about what you do with the bottom loaf, sometimes your code is going to spill out all over your lap. Like the way that like the parts of a sandwich would fall all out if you just took off the bottom loaf and you tried to eat it like this, right? Also, hey Meerkat. So, the reason why I bring this up and why this is important is very simple. especially when you're dealing with if and else statements. Oh, damn it. Now it's not. Thank you, Meerkat. I appreciate it. I knew I was forgetting something. I was like, everything is nice and good and everything should be fine, and I forgot to change the game. Whoop. But yeah, this is why this is relevant. You'll notice that I have this if statement and this else right here, right? Here is the problem. Here's where I screwed up. Because I was not paying attention to where I put this curly brace, this screwed me all up. Here's the deal. Else statements are connected directly to if statements that are on the same level as them, right? So, if this instance of the portrait is valid, then we do this stuff. Else, make the portrait invisible. The problem is that this is always going to evaluate the true, because if you go back and you look over at the actual yarn spinner dialog here, and then you go over and look at the line view, and then you look at where I put right here, right, portrait, because there's a portrait right here, this line is always going to evaluate the true, which means we never reach this. So, what this means here is that I need to take the bottom loaf of this and move it down one so that these two are on the same level. This is the thing, right? This is the thing. This is the way this code needs to look. So if we have a valid portrait, then we check if the file that we're trying to load exists. If it does, we put it in there, we make sure that it's visible. We make sure that we modulate the visibility to 1, right? If not, we modulate it to 0. And that's where I messed up, and now I have to fix it over here too, because the line of the logic is basically the same in this code over here. So, this is why you have to pay attention when you're doing your if statements. Where they start and where they end is very important. So we don't need that. We don't need that anymore. We can just say here, go and load the speaker's normal portrait from the portraits directory. Or I should say, set the file path to load the speaker's normal portrait. If we have assigned a node to the portrait, and if that portrait, and if the file set above leads to a valid file, set the portrait's texture to the file you want to load and make it visible. In this case now I don't need that because I know this should work now. If the file path does not lead to a valid file, empty out the texture for the portrait and make the portrait invisible. And then pretty much this is all the rest of this other code, and this other one is pretty much the same. I can just grab this. Do this. Okay. So now this should work. Now we should be good to go and this should work. I was totally convinced it was the 2 decades friendship deep cut. Not an unreasonable guess either, personally. Okay. All right, we got it. Yes. I'll replay it for when we're out of ad break. I just wanted to test it real quick. Okay. We should be coming out of ad break just about now, from what I can tell. Okay, perfect. Okay, we should be back from ads hell now. I'm gonna run this for y'all so y'all can see it. Because people who weren't in ads hell saw it. People who are didn't get to. So let's try this again. So yeah, it works. Now you may be wondering, but wait a minute, why is this text right here smaller than all the other text? That's because of something that we have to talk about called themes. So let's get into it. Themes. And the way that themes work. So, something that used to really get on my nerves, with, I'm gonna remember the word I'm looking for eventually. Right. Something that used to get on my nerves a lot with Unity is that setting your UI up to behave in a consistent manner, in the sense of like, hey, for these elements, I always want this text at this size with this and this and this. Getting that to be a thing is kind of a pain in the ass. It's a little bit of a pain to keep all that consistent in Unity, and you have to work out various systems and ways to do that. Something I like a lot about Godot is that it makes
doing that kind of control very, very easy, right? How so, you may ask, or in what ways? It's very simple. If you look over here, right, and we look at theme, right, and theme overrides, we can actually set an individual theme as well as like certain variations and stuff, if we are of the mind to. So for example, over here in this folder called system, I'm going to make a new resource, and we're going to call it, in this case, we're going to make a new theme over here. And what I'm going to call this is, you can't see the window right now, but we're going to get to it. So, over here, it's called Viral Core Buster's default theme, right? So, I can very easily like set up a default font, a default base scale, a default font size. So I am going to do that. So let's go look at the dialog text again real quick. It looks like we're working with 32. And we're not really messing with any, we don't have any custom fonts right now. So here's how we're going to do this. So the default font size is 32. We're going to leave that there. If we need to do individual overrides of these things, we can. Default base scale, I'm not messing with that. We're going to leave most of this other stuff like this for now, right? So over here with theme, we're going to do quick load. We're going to do VCB default theme. And for right now, we're going to turn off any of the overrides. Right? So for both the dialogue text and the speaker text, we're going to apply this same theme. Just because I want to make sure that like it displays correctly. And that like we're not looking at stuff that like looks way out of pocket. And now you notice, right? Now, we are not, now, right? Font now, bold, italic, underlined font. None of that is in different, none of that is in different sizes anymore. Because the default theme lays out a specific font size, and if I went to go to the trouble of, hey Cosmic, how you doing? Hopefully well. If we were to go to the point where I was like, now I want to make sure that we also do this, right? Bam. Like I could do things like if I want to set a specific default font for this game, then it's like, okay, cool. Bam, that's him, right? I have the ability to kind of like do that without having to deal with as much stuff. You can see over here, I even have the ability to extend theming stuff to things like the way buttons should look by default. The way that toggle buttons, disabled buttons, flat buttons. I can control all of these things here in terms of widgets and trees and all this other stuff however I want, and then apply that theme to a specific HUD element, and it will follow these rules, right? So it's very easy to just be able to say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then if I have individual overrides, I can do those. I haven't looked into the way that variants work yet, but there's supposed to be a thing with theme variants where probably you can just like tweak only specific items, but I haven't looked into it yet. My main point here being is that Godot makes it very straightforward and very easy to just be like, hey, I need all of these items in this project to follow this format. A little up and down health-wise, but I'm pretty alright at the moment. Just learning to deal with it, waiting on the doctor's appointment date. Hope it goes well. Oh, damn it, I forgot to change my go live notification as well. So it said Tower Kagutsuchu, and that's not what we're doing today. Haha. This is why I don't mess with my go live notification usually, because I'll forget to change it every time. Crying, screaming, feeling bad. We doing that good old coded? Yep. It's Wednesday. So yeah, basically at this point we were just messing around with a couple of things in terms of dialogue stuff, and it looks like, by and large, we've caught most of the things that I was trying to sort out today, which is good. So we may wind up doing checkpoints today, maybe not. We have to see. Now is we just need to replace these with this.
should be able to test the next node accordingly. So if I come over to this one, okay, it's squishy. Trigger. This one. Now I need to fix these. I grabbed the wrong things. The only thing to really be careful of in Godot sometimes is that, especially if you're working with like invisible objects like these, the thing you want to be careful of is accidentally grabbing, and I did this already, there's a collision shape inside of each of these trigger volumes for the dialogue, right? And so the thing that you have to be careful of, and I already kind of messed this up at least once because I wasn't paying attention, is that you don't grab the collision shapes themselves, right? Because if you grab those and you move those by accident, then there's a mismatch between where the actual thing is. So yeah, I can change the size of it still, right? But I do want to make sure that I like lock the position, because otherwise shenanigans happen. I just went ahead and I locked the position for those over there. So I want to grab these trigger volumes to make sure I'm moving those instead. But it looks like I sorted that out, so that should be fine. I'm going to grab this one back. I'm going to go 0, node 2. I'm just going to test. Oh, add the code up so y'all didn't see that.
Lol. Lamau. Lol.
Okay, case in point, right? Because I wasn't careful about how I was moving platform, you notice how there's like this little blue box and it looks like I'm standing on midair? It's because when I moved platform, right? I moved the platform and not the collision box that went with it. So I got to take a couple steps back until or I guess not. Okay, so I just got to figure out how to fix this thing now. So I'm going to take this thing called the mesh instance. I'm going to lock this so I can't move. I'm going to take the collision shape. I'm going to lock that too. Well, I'm going to lock that too. Now I'm going to come up to the ground itself and I'm going to pull the ground. So that's one of the only things that about Godot that does take a little bit of getting used to. Though this can happen even if you're like in Unity and stuff like that. You have to be sure that if you're moving an object that is composed of multiple nodes, you got to make sure that you grab the top level thing and move that instead of the stuff inside of it. We get like mismatches like that.
Okay, good. That's working. Oh, I thought I fixed that. That's annoying. I thought I fixed that, but I guess not. Lol. Um. Okay. So let me see. So, what I forgot to do here was over here. I forgot to do this. This is why. And that should handle that. But this does lead to something else I need to try to figure out. So I'm going to have to come over here to this line here. Need to... That's the ready function. Run line async. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so we have one more thing over here. Just stop trying to think. Stop trying to think ahead of me. I just need you to do this. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Okay. Right now, this should be handled. So let's switch over to Coro. So I was just trying to tweak some code that should make it so that if no speaker is given, it hides it. Do that text without meaning to. Alright, good. So that all works. Okay. We need to come back over to one of the other scripts I was working on. This one. Well, before that, I should do this. All right, we're gonna go over here. Region, export variables, region, category, configuration. What I just did here was set it up so that, and we'll notice this if we look up. So, what I did was I went back to the base class of the dialogue trigger, and I set it up so that there's a variable now that determines whether or not you can interact with that thing multiple times, right? So if we come over here, I'll demonstrate what I mean by this. If we come over here to the terrain, and we look at the entities, look at the dialogue triggers, right? And we look at this trigger volume, right? You see now it has the target group is already there. But now, right, we have a thing that says one shot. So if one shot is set to true, then what happens is after this thing is activated, right, in whatever capacity that it is activated, then it destroys itself. So for things like dialogue triggers, where we don't want the dialogue trigger to be like, where we don't want the dialogue trigger to activate multiple times by crossing over it, like back and forth, right? We leave one shot on, and what that means is that when we touch it, it goes poof, right? And that is to our advantage. and that's useful. There may be certain kinds of like volume trigger that we don't want to do that behavior, and when that comes up, we can just go bloop and turn it off, right? But for when we do, we have it. I am actually on my PC now, so I can be a little more actively paying attention, but I'm also gaming. Hey, sometimes what you just need is somebody doing the stream thing while you're having a good time playing whatever you're playing, and then that's all the vibes you need. You know? So, let's see here. Now, I guess now that we've done this, I do want to like mess around and at least start putting checkpoints together, because that would be helpful. All right, let's do it. So we're gonna do this. Actually, this needs to be a. Okay. So actually, instead of Q3, what we're going to do here is say monitoring is equal to false. So the reason why we're going to do this instead is because rather than getting rid of the object, it just makes it so that it can't be detected anymore. You're going to see why this is important in a minute. Rather than getting rid of it, we're just saying, hey, if you're one shot, then you can't be monitored anymore once you're done with what you're doing. You're not monitoring for collisions anymore once you're done with what you're doing. The reason why this matters will become important in a minute. Not right this second. So we're not going to save that scene. We're going to come over to trigger volume. Duplicate. We're going to call this one trigger volume checkpoint. Duplicate it. So we're going to call this one checkpoint. We're going to call this one, well, this is trigger volume dialog. Trigger volume checkpoint. Okay. So now what we need to do is over here in this objects, we're going to do create new script, do trigger volume checkpoint.cs. Take this, drop that here, this one, and this is going to inherit from trigger volume. So here we're going to do base.ready. Base.ready to make sure that that's all the same. We're going to do add group. Over enum collections, I'm going to add a new group, and we're going to call this one checkpoints. This is node groups dot checkpoints dot toString. So we're going to do this so that every checkpoint, whenever it's put into the game world, gets put into a node group for checkpoints, right? Very simple.
this is going to be the level manager's responsibility, so let's do it over here. So public. Again, I'm going to make sure, in this case, I want to do this for the current checkpoint so that the level manager is the only thing that can control, right, what checkpoints are added and not added. And it makes it easier for me to control it makes it easier for me to like know which, like where, it makes it easier for me to know where certain changes are coming from without like letting just any old script change it willy-nilly. They have to call. So while any other script can read what level manager's current checkpoint is, only the level manager itself can set what the current checkpoint is. And I'm doing that on purpose so that I have a control over where that information is flowing from. So in this case, we'll do instance dot current checkpoint equals new current checkpoint. And that's pretty much on purpose, right? If I wanted to, I could put a signal here saying, you know, new checkpoint established, if I felt like doing that, if I have a reason to do that. Again, reasons why I like Godot is that it is very easy, right? So if I wanted to set up some sort of event that happens anytime I run across a new checkpoint and then have that checkpoint set as the current one, I could make a signal here, right? So I could do something like public delegate void player new checkpoint event handler, right? And I could have it emit that signal, and then I could have things subscribe to that signal so that when we hit a new checkpoint, bam, stuff happens. All I can say, again, is that I love Godot for this. Unity has something similar with the event system. It's just that with Godot, signals were one of the things that they were very explicit about, like foregrounding as a, this is a thing that you should be using often, this is a thing that you should be using plenty, sort of thing. And even like the documentation Godot is very deliberate about trying to introduce you to signals as early as possible, sort of help you get in a position where you can just like get this stuff going without having to like make wild guesses about things. So here, what I want now is an override factor. Override. Now we can do level manager dots. The current checkpoint with this, right? And then, bam, we're good, right? Very, very useful. So now, whenever we are ready, so I'll put it right here.
right? And I can even do this now, right? Where now, if I need to know, right, what the current checkpoint is, bam. I can also just have the level manager print out what the current checkpoint is, right? Nice and easy. Oh, right. I don't need to do this. I can just do this. I made it silly and I forgot. And now there's only one other thing I need to do. We're also going to do another export over here. We're going to do export public pool auto trigger get detected set is true. Does this trigger volume automatically go off when touched? Oh, even better. So I just don't even need a ready. I don't even need a ready function over here because it does these two things already. I think. Hang on. Wait. Let me double check that real quick. Okay. Add to group target group dot to. Okay. Cool. Cool. No, this is fine. So I did it the right way. We want to make sure that the target group is set up, but also that if we have things that need to be in different groups, having a separate one added on afterward is correct. Good. This is good. All right. Cool. And then we're gonna just do td.print string.format. At some point, I will probably learn how to actually format the Godot print stuff directly. But it's too much trouble right now, so I'll just do it this way. I'll do it this way, it's fine. Alright, cool. This should... Alright, good. That should more or less handle that. Because the reason why I made it do that instead is because when the player dies, I would like to be able to make sure what we can do is jump back to the position of whatever our last checkpoint was and go from there. So now I'm going to drop off trigger volume checkpoint over here. And we're going to rename this to start checkpoint. And we're just going to test this just to make sure. We're going to test this just to make sure. Okay. So Godot was a little bit angry about that, but it works. So, this part where it's like function block during in-out signal, use set deferred monitoring this. All that means that here, what they would prefer happens that you do this. Set deferred monitoring false. And then you do set deferred monitorable false. Basically speaking, there's a thing that Godot has sometimes, right? Where they want you to wait until the end of the current frame before you do certain things. It depends on the function. There's some just things where Godot is like, hey, I really, really, really need you to not fuck with this until after the current frame is over. That's what set deferred is for, basically. If we look over at the remote, right, and we look at the player start point, we can see that the start checkpoint itself is still there, right? It's over here on this corner. You can't really see it. But the start checkpoint is still there. It's just that it can't be monitored, and it's not monitoring for anything. So basically, it's like it's becoming invisible. That's very much on purpose, right? However, it is still physically present, and that is the important part, right? That is the important part. It is still physically present, and that is on purpose. Now, for example, I can come over to this trigger volume checkpoint. Let's see. Add child code. We just need a mesh. I'm just gonna drop a nice little box right here. The size is fine. We just need probably to just move the position of the sound. So we're gonna leave that alone. Visual instance, we're not gonna mess with that. Transform, I'm just gonna put it up about like 0.5. I just need it like right here. And if I wanted to mess with the materials, I could do all of that. I think probably the simplest thing I'm going to do right now is just so that we have, just so that I have a point of reference for knowing whether or not we've activated a checkpoint. Very simple thing that we're going to do here. Y'all ready for some real silliness? Keep game. Here is the cool. Here is something very, very cool about the way that Godot's animation player works. If you take an animation player node in Godot, you can alter or keyframe basically any property, doesn't matter which property it is. Godot itself does not care at all. You can alter basically whatever prop you can by. So yeah, we're gonna do this one, create size, and just to be safe, we're also gonna do one for the position. Keyframe for the size, keyframe for the position. You're gonna see why in a minute. Transform. I would also like to keyframe it, just to be sure. And like here, actually, wait, I could literally just. Actually, let's not even do that. Let's get rid of this track. Let's just do the rotation. Because we don't even need to mess with the size. About those two. So here, checkpoint activated. Keyframe the rotation. And then maybe like over here, right? Like halfway through the animation, maybe make the length. You need to do that. You do 15, right? Let's zoom in a little bit. So over here, by the time we hit this frame, keyframe, cancel, we're going to keyframe the rotation over here. And now the only thing we really need to do is take this and rotate it. Maybe we say it's like this, right? We keyframe this here. Now, at first, you might be like, okay, that doesn't look cool. Like, it rotates by that. Keep game. So, export, animation, player, and player. And we're gonna just do player.play check point activated. So basically speaking, right, I can use this literally just like a placeholder for right now, and this will be fine, right? So I'm going to save this. Except it's not going to work yet because I didn't assign an animation player. And there's one other thing I need to like actually do. First of all, I have to assign the animation player here. And then the second and most important thing I need to do is export bool is invisible. And very simply, do if is invisible, right? We'll do get node, we'll do get node 3D model dot visible is equal to false. You may be going, we don't have a node 3D called model, right? We're going to reparent to new node 3D is model, right? And now in this case, yep. And now all we need to do at this point Now that you've done that, we can come over here. We can see how big the checkpoint square is just by looking at this now. So over here, if that's not big enough, we can do 3. And the collision shape itself, the actual size, we should probably make sure that it matches. And then we just do 1.5 here, and we're good, right? Now, checkpoint is big enough to be seen. We can come over to start checkpoint over here, and we just need to make sure. First, I have to build this to make sure that this comes back. So we're going to build it real quick, and we're going to hit is invisible. And now, when we play the game, what should happen is pretty straightforward. Y'all can see that now the checkpoint there is invisible, right? It's still registered as our previous checkpoint. It's just right now it's invisible. However, if we were to take another checkpoint, so over here I'm going to do entities, add child node. We're going to do another node and call this one checkpoints. And then over here, I'm going to, while having the checkpoint selected over here, down in the file system, I'm going to do instantiate by right-clicking on the actual, that one. Cool, trigger volume checkpoint. Do checkpoint 1 is right here. Checkpoint 1, we make sure to grab the actual volume in and of itself. We're going to drag that and pull that and put that like right here. I'm going to save. We're going to run it again. There you have it. It went and turned on its side. Nice and easy. I think if I do that, it should ping pong back and forth between that. Now, I want to just double check one thing real quick to see if I understand this correctly. Yeah, that'll do. Very good. I know that we're in ads hell right now. I'll re-show everybody once ads hell is over. I'm gonna just test this one more time, and then I'll do it again once ads are over so people can see. Okay, cool. So that works the way that I would like it to work, which makes me very happy. Okay, so the model, let's see. Okay, excellent. All right. And we're coming up right out of ads hell too, right on time. Okay, so that means I get to show you all this. So yeah, y'all can see, right? When I touch the checkpoint, it does a funny little turn, right? It does like a funny little hee-haw turn, right? And then when you run back across it, it doesn't do it again. But now you have a nice, easy way of telling, hey, did I actually like touch this checkpoint or what, right? And all I had to do that, and again, reasons why I love Godot so much, right? All I really had to do in order to do that was, if you go to the animation player, you can basically keyframe. Oh, I have the wrong thing open, so y'all can't see it. Lol. Y'all saw it happen on screen, but I didn't do this. So all I really have to do, right, is I can keyframe basically any property of any node that the animation player can see, and done deal. I can do literally whatever I want. And on top of that, there is additional flexibility for, hey, at certain points in the animation, go and call this function with these parameters and X, Y, Z, A, B, C, right? Like, Godot is incredibly flexible about these kinds of things. And these are things that you can do in Unity, but Unity is a lot pickier, for example, about what things you can keyframe in an animation player. Godot doesn't really care. In Godot, you can literally keep, like, basically once you have an animation player set down inside of a node like this, you can keyframe literally any value almost any value that you feel like. It's kind of wild. You can, if you felt like it, you could even, in theory, keyframe and change which script is loaded. Not that you should necessarily, but I'm saying mostly that you have a lot of flexibility about what properties in an animation you are allowed to like keyframe and therefore control via the animation player. There's a lot of these things you can control this way with the animation player. It's really, really good. And it's one of the things that I love the most about Godot. Like straight up and down, if you had to like say, okay, Sean, what is the thing that you really, really like about Godot? It's like the animation player is really, really strong. You can just do a lot of stuff, right? Whenever you need or feel the need to, you can do that, right? So, with all this done though, let's do a little mischief here. So, I think if I'm careful, I should be able to do this correctly. Okay, so let's do this like this. I gotta be careful about how I do this, and I have to be very, very deliberate about how I do this. So, let's start simple. For the level manager, there's one thing that we need to be able to set up here. So here's what we're going to do. Over here, we're going to do current player dot main health script dot health depleted. So this signal, right? We're going to connect main camera. Well, we're going to do it like this. Main camera dot change target null. Right? So when the player runs out of health, connect the player's health depleted signal to disabling the main camera. Right? So when the health script here, when it's like, oh, we're out of health, shoot, right? We are doing this for the player. The level manager is handling it. So when the player is first instantiated into the level, it is the level manager's responsibility to say, hey, player, main health script. The health script goes, yeah, what's up? The level manager says, hey, health script for the player. When your health is depleted, I need you to yell out something so the main camera can go, oh, the current player is knocked out. I don't have a target. Cool. Main health script goes, cool, I can do that. So this is what this is for, right? Or I should not to disabling the main camera, connect to turning to nulling out the main camera's target, which makes it stay in place. Right? So there's that. Over here in the player script, okay, if I'm not using either of those, then I'm not going to keep them here. Those are not important. These are animation functions. Cool. We're going to close those off for a second. We don't need those. These are physics functions, action functions, flag functions, animation functions, action functions, try jump, try skill, try attack. Okay. Physics functions, flag functions, animation functions. We're going to do right now public void die. We're going to do public void revive. Night, Stubby. So here's the important thing, right? So die and revive, very simple. Functionally speaking, when the player is dead, it is wasteful. Well, Godot doesn't have this problem so much, but in the general practices sense, right? We do not necessarily want to destroy the player and remake them from the start whenever they've died. We don't necessarily want that, right? That is not necessarily the way that we want to function. For various reasons, this can cause other issues. So, we want to try to avoid this as much as we can, right? So instead, here's what we're going to do. Oh, hold on. I should make my life easier and just do those are exported vars, player configuration, player status vars. Those are exported variables, player config. Okay. So over here, we're just going to do node 3D. So actually, public node 3D player pivot model. Get protected set. It's yelling because I put a space in a spot where I'm not supposed to. So do this. I'm going to say player pivot model equals this. And now I can just do a search for pivot. We're going to do player pivot model.basis. Okay. Is there anywhere else that this is? Yeah, only one other spot. So we're going to take this and we're going to do player pivot model. Okay, cool. So die, we're going to do player pivot model dot visible equals false, right? So for right now, I'm just manually setting up a timer just to like let it run and do some silliness, just to be sure. So it does auto start. Okay. So then I don't need to do that. I can just do this. Okay. So auto start, one shot, wait time. Okay, cool. And then revive. All I really need to do. So that will do player input script instance dot input why can I not remember how to do the thing that I literally just set up a second ago? I need to just go double check it. It is, the function is toggle inputs. Okay, thank you. Dot instance dot toggle inputs equals false. Okay. I'm going to do main health script dot so
So I really felt like it. So we'll do public void revive. We're just gonna call it that just to make my life a lot easier. Or better yet, we're just gonna say restore all health. And we'll just do that. And now over here for the player, we're gonna just do restore all health. Right? Now up here, the reason why I didn't just make a thing where it's like, oh yeah, we add a thing where a signal puts out like health for the revival. There may be reasons that we don't want to do that, right? So for right now, because it is specifically only the player that does it, I am setting it separate. So that said, we do need region signals and region, and we're going to do signal public abstract void. I think it was abstract, right? Event handler, and we're going to say player revived. I think this was delegate. I can never remember the keyword for this. So delegate, player revived event handler. Okay, cool. And then over here, we're going to say emit signal name dot revive. Okay. Now, what we can do is over here in the level manager, right? Well, we're not all the way done yet, but we're getting close. So at this point, we can now do current player dot player revived main camera change target current player, right? So the only missing link here that we have to be sure that we like get done now is over here. We want to do main health script dot health completed plus equals die. Very simple. So what we've done here is pretty straightforward, right? When the player runs out of health, and it doesn't matter if it's Funk or Koro or Vogue, right? If the main player runs out of health, the health depleted signal is emitted at some point, right? When that happens, oh, wait. I botched.
I botched. I botched something very important. Hold on a second. I botched something very important. And I gotta make sure that I so I have to do this over here, I think. So player pivot and model dot position equals level manager dot instance dot current checkpoint dot position. There we go. I think that should do that now. So if I did this correctly, what should happen is, right, if for whatever reason I die, reviving works correctly. Except for the part where the player becomes visible again and we move according. Oh, I'm silly. I should do it like that because the pivot is separate from that. Haha, that should fix it. So the player pivot and model, this is why this is important. The model is treated as a separate object from the actual player. So you have the player, you have the player's like character body, and then you have the model of the child of it. So I messed up and I didn't put the thing in the right position. So bop, 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 bop. Yep, there we go. Step over here now. Activate this checkpoint. There we go. Right? Easy as pie. And again, this is why I like Godot so much, because literally all I did was I didn't even have to make like an actual variable for the timer. I literally like the timer node that I wanted to use. It's like whatever, it'll just be like a temporary timer. I don't really even care. Revive timer dot name. I can even do it's just revival timer, right? So the function where the player dies, lol. Turn off the player's model and turn off all inputs from the player. Make a new timer. Make a new timer node. Name it revival timer and configure it to go off automatically once it's added to the scene. On timeout of the revival timer, run the revive function. Put the timer into the scene as a child of the player. Into move our position back to the position of whatever the last check, whatever the current checkpoint is. Store all health to the player. Turn back on the So yeah, signals. This is why signals are incredibly powerful, right? Because literally, the only things I had to do was, and I'll go back over to show y'all specifically what I did in Level Manager. All I did in the Level Manager was say, hey, current player, when your health has run out, all I need, hey, current player, main health script. When your health has run out, when you emit that signal for when you are out of health, I need you to turn off whatever target you're targeting. So just look at the spot, just stop following whatever you were following, and just chill out and just wait. Once the current player is revived, it's like, hey, camera, go back and focus on the current player. And the thing is, because right now with Viral Core Busters, I'm not planning on, and it's not intended that you'll be able to like switch characters mid-level or whatever, right? So you don't have to like actually worry about that. Basically, you pick a character, and that's the character that you use for that run. You can't like switch or anything. That's on purpose because like trying to deal with it otherwise is like a headache. So that all said, though, all of this basically happens when the player is first instantiated at the very start of the level. So basically, literally, from the moment that the player has like beamed in, all of this stuff gets set up, and you just don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to stress and think about like, oh god, what if I destroyed the player and then I have to reassign? Nope, don't got to worry about that. And this is why I was very specifically like, we don't want the player to be physically like, we don't want to get rid of the player's object or node rather once they've run out of health. We just hide it. We just hide their health and make them invisible and move them back to where they need to be. And then we turn the camera. And then once they've revived properly, we tell the camera, here's your focus again. Right? I didn't have to do a lot of like wild and I almost said a word I'm trying to get rid of. We didn't have to do a bunch of like wild and annoying like workarounds for that. Not really. Just very, very simply. Just very, very simply, right? Hey, TLDR, what's the deal with this, right? Like, that's not what I meant to say. The TLDR is basically we just let the level manager set up a couple of notes. We set up a couple of hooks in the player script itself, right? Because basically the most important thing is that the player is able to emit the signal, hey, I'm revived now, I'm back. If there's anything that's subscribed to my player revived signal, now's the time to do whatever you're doing, right? So like I said, Unity can do this stuff with signaling by using like actions and events and stuff, but Godot, like I was saying earlier, I'm just reiterating it because it's important, Godot is very explicitly like, signals are really, really good. You should be using them a lot. We are going to make an effort to make sure that they are like a forward first sort of thing when you're doing stuff, right? They are very upfront about like, hey, you should be using signals a lot. Hey, you should be using signals a lot. Hey, signals are really good. And the reason why signals are really good, I'm going to try to explain this as like laymansy as I can, right? If you don't do signals, you have to do a lot of work where you are actively monitoring, right, whether or not the condition has been met. So it would be a thing where I'm like, in like the level manager or something, I'd have to be constantly tracking whether or not the player's health has reached 0, right? Which means I have to like write code that's looking out for that, and then when that happens, it does this and all that other stuff, right? With signals, on the other hand, I don't have to actively be paying attention to it. It's like I'm just putting on a sticky note that says, hey, when this happens, you need to do this, okay? Cool, got it, right? Think of it like, coaching a little league team. Except that the little leaguers that you're playing with basically have perfect memories and will not forget anything as long as you tell them when this happens, do this, right? So it's it's like playing little league. It's like well, that's maybe the wrong metaphor. I'm trying to think of a better metaphor than that. It's the difference between playing little league with a team that you just got that doesn't know like the hand signals and stuff yet versus a little league team that you've been coaching for a while and like you actually like know and they've got your signals and stuff like down pat, right? If you are not using signals and things like that, then it's like you're coaching the team from the ground up, where it's like you have to be watching them like a hawk to them, be like, hey, do this when you need to do this, do that when you need to do that, right? Versus a team you've been working with for a while who knows what to look for and what things to do, so long as you remind them, hey, when this happens, do this. They're like, cool, got it, boss. And then they do exactly that. There were hand signals in Little League. I don't know sports, so I might actually be bullshitting, and that's not the way that it works. Maybe then the proper metaphor is just to say baseball straight out. It's like working with a baseball team that you don't that you have just met versus a baseball team that you've been working with long enough that they know what hand signals and stuff to use. Yeah. They put the ball thingy into the hole thingy and people cheer. It's basketball. Man, that's basketball. Anyway, my point being to unmetaphor the metaphor because I have completely lost. Depends on your team, but sometimes. Okay, so I'm not completely talking out of my ass there. But my point mostly is that if you're not using signals, it becomes a thing where you have to normally use like an if statement where you are explicitly monitoring if this thing happens, like every frame, you have to monitor that if you don't use a signal. And that works, and that's okay, but you could also just set it up so that basically it's like an auto flag condition where it's like, if this happens, do this. Okay. Another way of putting it, Final Fantasy 12 has a whole thing with how it works where you have these things. I don't remember the exact terminology for it, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. But basically, Final Fantasy games in general. No, that's not right. Final Fantasy 12 has a thing where you can set up specific reactions in response to certain thing happening, right? But that thing could happen whenever you're doing whatever, right? So rather than like that's still not right. I'm overcomplicating this. I'm sorry. Let me think about this for a second. Let me think about the best way to explain this. Okay, I've got it. Signals and the way that they work, it's like tuning into a radio. I've got it now. I got the metaphor now. I'm sorry, it took me a minute. But I got there. Signals in Godot are a lot like tuning into a radio. Once you know what frequency to hit, when that signal goes out, you'll catch it and do something. If you're not attuned to it, you don't know it, right? You don't know to hear it. You don't know to listen for it. And that's why signals are important, because the key thing is that multiple radios can catch a signal, right? They just have to be tuned into it. It's the same thing with the way signals work in Godot. There we go. I found the metaphor. God, that took me way too long. And that's why signals are powerful. Because if you need multiple objects to respond to the same signal, but in different ways, all you have them do is register to the signal like this, and then have them do this thing. And it makes your life easier because you've just told them, hey, when you catch a signal, do this. Just do whatever you're doing, but when you catch a signal, do this, right? And that makes your life a lot easier because now you're not having to constantly monitor whatever radio to make sure it catches the signal. If it's already tuned in and locked onto the signal and it has it registered, it'll catch it. And you don't have to think about it. Same principle here, right? And that's why Godot makes metaphor crafting as an art. It's okay. Thank you, Kaz. I appreciate that. I feel a lot better about that. But yeah, while I'm at it, let me take this collision shape and let me make it. No, that's not right. I need the scale to be really, really long. This way, you cannot miss it. Like that scale is really long. Very difficult to miss that. Cool. But yeah. And the important thing in doing all of this, right? The reason why I went out of my way, for example, to make sure that so every entity in Viral Core Busters that has health, right? Let me describe it like this. Every entity in Viral Core Busters that has health, right? Whether that's a player or an enemy, right? They all put out signals. So every entity in Viral Core Busters, whatever it is, right, that has a health script on it, will have the capacity, so long as that health script is taking damage or like is registered or set up to take damage, so long as all of that is a thing, any individual object with health and Viral Core Busters can say, hey, I've been hurt. Hey, I've had my health restored. Hey, I'm dead, right? Any entity in Viral Core Busters that has a health script node that is configured correctly will be able to do that stuff. And that's important because it means that I can now keep eyes on or assign to a specific or an individual health script. Hey, do this. Hey, don't do this, right? It is easier now to like manage and handle those things. Okay, change the size of its shape resources instead. Okay, that's fine. I can do that. So let's do that then. 1, 1, 1. And we're going to do this as 3, 100. Okay, that's fine. They were just like, hey, don't scale. Like, just change the size of it. Just scale it over here and not down here. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. That's fine. All right. I want to tweak like one more thing here, just for giggles. Transform. And we're going to call this one main body. And this one is antenna. Keep this. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for some real... I love Godot so much. Watch this. So antenna, we're going to come to this keyframe here, or even like this one, right? We're going to come to this right here. Make sure the antenna is selected. I'm going to make sure that the position, we're going to keyframe the position right here for the antenna, right? And then over here, what size did I make this? This is, yeah, it's like 0 0.5, 0 0.5, 0 0.5. So we're going to do like 1. And then we're going to keyframe this here. Okay. So save this, come back over here, run this. Is that or is that not the coolest shit you have ever seen? Look at that. And better yet, because I realized that they weren't twisting in tandem, right? And all I had to do, I'm going to reiterate, as a wise person once said, I'm pogging out of my gourd. And like literally all I have to do, mind you, is literally I can just come over to the animation player. I just have to make sure I have the right stuff selected and easy pickings. So I'm going to make sure the antenna is also rotated correctly to match the main body. So I'm going to come over here, rotation. I'm going to keyframe the rotation for the antenna also. I'm going to make sure I move over to this spot over here. Okay. The Y rotation, -60. We're going to keyframe it right here. Or actually, let's get sicko. No, actually, let's get sicko mode with this. Hold the fuck up. No, I like this other idea better. Hold on. Let's get sicko mode with this for real now. I'm going to take the original keyframe, move it like right here. We're going to do a nice little syncopated twist. If I do this correctly. So what should happen is I got to probably move this a little bit further forward so that while this is part way out, it starts twisting. Yeah, look at that. Blah, blah. Twists right. Ah, it is, isn't it? Hold on. Dang it. My bad. But look at this, is wild. All right. So, all right. Top. Oof. All right. Yeah, this is freaking sweet. Look at that. Nice little snap pop of that antenna right into place. Ain't that delicious? All right. So I just need to do one thing real quick. All right. The checkpoints are going to serve a secondary purpose in viral core busters anyway, so I need to just get that set up right now. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to I need to duplicate this, and I need to say and now this is what we need to do, right? I'm going to clear out this one. We're going to pull this back to 0. And for the position of the antenna, we're going to make sure. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm clearing out the key. I duplicated the original animation for this, and I'm just locking all these other things back into position on purpose so that I can now do, for example, we can come over here to like this one. I just need to come over here to the position with the antenna. We're gonna keyframe right here, and we're gonna drop that back to 0 over here. Nope. Don't want to do that. 0 is too deep. We'll do 0.5. Lock that back in over there. Rotation, lock that back into 0. No, not for scale. Just gonna do this one. Thank you. 0, and lock that back in. And now, blop. There's going to be a secondary purpose that these checkpoints serve at a different point in time. And we're going to get to that one much, much, much later on down the road. But for that purpose, I need to have the antenna be able to retract. So we're not going to see that retracting being put to use for a while, but we are going to just have that there for when I'm ready for it. The long and short of it is that there's a system that I want to program into the game that will be relevant to our needs for that. And so there will come a point at which we're like, yeah, we gotta have that retract and knock itself out and all that other stuff, right? And considering the last design that I had for these things, this one is much more compact and much better, and I prefer it that way. But all right, this is where we're gonna call stream for right now. I gotta try to move quick fast and get us up somewhere to hang out before we get hit by ads. Who do we want to hang out with? This feels like it might be an okay drink kind of night, but I need to double check to see what the state of our cooldown stuff looks like. I don't remember who we went to go visit on the 16th. No, I do, actually. We went to go see Yo. It's LJ on the 16th. Yeah, okay. Take off those two. Okay. Yeah, I know who we're going to go see, because it's been a while since we've gone to go see him. We're going to go hang out with Okadrian, because Fluffy Unicorn Rampage. Alright. Okay, fix this is lit. Okay, I will do my best to remember. It may take me a half second to get that put into memory, but I got you. Or I will attempt to have you. We're going to go hang out with Okadrian, because I feel like going to go bother him and just be silly in his chat. My links are all here. NeoCity's blog. I do game design stuff over there. I'll be probably posting about Nocturne and Mai at some point on there. RSS feed is there. You can follow that. Stream VODs go up on my YouTube. Ko-Fi, if you want to support me in the stream and don't want to give money to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, Ko-Fi is better. I don't have to wait for like reaching a payout threshold like I do with Twitch. I prefer monthly subs over there versus monthly subs on Twitch, but do whichever you feel. Phone, anonymous gift giving, whether you choose to chip in with crowdfunding stuff or like straight up buy something, your choice. Card has all my social media links on there. I'm mostly on Blue Sky these days. Munity, I helped co-found a game studio. If you want to know more about us, go to Munity. That's community without the com.games. Patreon under the same name. And we have an itch page under the same name. You can play our demo for Shoot Lancer, which is the primary game that we're working on. It's on a little bit of a break right now, but we got a demo with a good chunk of levels available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can go play it over at that address link there. Last but not least, if you don't mind making a Roblox account that you don't care anything about, you can join us over on Guilded. Guilded basically is a lot like Discord, except that features that Discord charges for, Guilded made free, which is the primary reason why we use it. It's just kind of a preference thing. But if that's not your jam, I completely understand. No worries. So, all that said, all that done, we're going to go hang out with Ocadrian. As a heads up, he is playing Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. People who are not familiar with the Hellblade series, it is it's a 3D action game, but it does deal with a lot of themes around like mental health and things of that nature. If you're not in like a position where like emotionally you're up for that, feel free to just be like, nah, I'm gonna peace out. I get it. But if not, we can go hang out with Adrian. Go bother him, do nonsense. Raid message is SJH does raids. Throw in your favorite emotes. They don't have to be my emotes. Do whatever you feel. Stream schedule. Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves demo is out. We're going to play some Hotaru Futaba and kick some ass. Probably get my ass beat, but whatever. Fatal Fury, I have been waiting for so long for Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. We're going to try out the open beta test, see what's up, get in some good games, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, SMT Nocturne, The Last. Ideally speaking, we've got all the Magatama in the game. Aside from me planning out some other skill progression stuff, we're about as good as we're going to get as far as like most things go. So I plan on knocking out the last bosses that we need to fight. And ideally we wrap a bow on Nocturne on Sunday. Next Wednesday, probably more game dev stuff. Probably more of our Core Buster stuff. We'll see how things go. Till the next time I see you, whenever that is, stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, don't go outside if you don't have to, be excellent to each other. Not to bigots, racist, TERFs, sexist, or anti-queer folks, or Zionists. Remember, Black Lives Matter, trans rights, human rights, reproductive rights, human rights. Palestine, Sudan, the Congo, New Caledonia must all be free. None of us are free until we're all free. If you can't be out on the streets marching or doing whatever else, then the best thing that you can do to look out for other people is just what you can. Helping them with groceries, talking to your neighbors if they're not like, a danger to you or anything. Volunteering. Whatever you can do with the energy that you have, find yourself a thing and do the thing. And that is pretty much enough. You'd be surprised. So, thank y'all. Deeply appreciate it. I'm getting up out of here. Till next time I see you, whenever that is, take care. Deuces.